Well, today I guess we've got a Monday's garden life. Yesterday I just took the day off. I watched tons of football. It was an absolutely gorgeous day outside. I worked out in the garden all day. Lots of visitors came by and it was just sublime. But today I thought we'd do something a little bit different. I am still prepping for the garden tour. I'm trying to do some of those last minute things like my last prune of the boxwood for the year. Lots of deadheading because I want those flowering plants to keep pushing out blooms before the big day. I noticed a couple of problems that I need to address in the way of powdery mildew, going to put down some mulch, well, just a variety of different things, and I thought you guys might want to join me. So what do you say?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, we've already done some pretty aggressive mulching, but there's a couple of other areas that the mulch has just really washed away. And so I am going to get those targeted spots. And yes, I am back to using my Happy Grow landscaper mix. They've gone back to, I think, whatever their original recipe was. So I'm just going to put a bag of mulch down here. You can see how all of this area, the mulch has really washed away. It will look a lot nicer when I put a fresh inch or two on. And while it's cool in the morning, that's what I'm gonna do. Well, the raspberry budleyi, the butterfly candy, it will be a lot happier now that it's got a new skirt of mulch around it. It all looks very nice and took me all of 5 minutes. So there you go, click, there's the end shot. Now I'm not doing a lot of aggressive pruning, really on anything, but I'm doing some light pruning just to shape things up so that the form looks nice and crisp for my visitors. These Oakland hollies are case in point. I reserve any kind of, where I'm cutting big branches till the winter because I like to use the holly foliage inside for decorating. So this is just a little tweaking here and there, not overly aggressive, pleasant work. A little bit of pruning on this side. As you can see, I've still got my railing that will go up down here. That is going to happen this week. I am hoping about the same time that we start working on the flower bed on the east side. Now here's, I guess, kind of a question of the day for you. What would you do when it comes to some of these suckers that have come up from the base of this gorgeous Encore Azalea topiary? Well, I don't want to take them off completely, but I am going to shorten them, and I don't really care if this part blooms or not, but I do want it to start bushing out because I think it would be nice to have a second skirt down here of azalea, both blooms and foliage, and that may happen next spring, but I'm just going to do a little shaping. But if you were me, here's that question of the day: would you let them continue to grow, or would you tidy them up a bit? And by the way, this is a columbine, I'm going to say it's yellow, that has seeded itself at the base of this pot. So I'm going to clean up the dead foliage on this a little bit. Check to see if there's any other seedlings in here. And I will give it a good feed, or rather a good watering, not a feeding this time of year, and we'll call it good. I'll give it a good watering, and who knows if it's going to stay here for the garden tour or not. But wherever it goes, it's going to appreciate being hydrated, just like the gardener. The other thing I'm doing is tending all of my pots, because a lot of things have gone to seed, both intentionally and accidentally, at the base of the pots. And here is a wonderful example of seeding in kind of a forgotten place. This is all foxglove, and it is absolutely very treasured by me, very valuable. These are all little seedlings. This here is a large one. I'll transplant it later in the fall. And then I've got also a salvia seedling in there. And I want to make sure that I don't overwater this, but I don't want those seedlings to dry out, because on a really hot day without any kind of watering, they could expire pretty quickly. The other thing that I've done is I've cut back lots of my flowering plants pretty hard, and I'm going to be feeding them rather aggressively. They're just annuals, to see if I can force some bloom out of them. Here is another example of lots of seedlings. Oh, this makes me so happy. So these are all golden feverfew seedlings. And these might actually stay in here, because how sweet to have that ferny golden skirt at the base of this topiary. And then I'll probably maybe plant some violas on the other side. So this is a gift. I anticipated before that last gentle rain that it would be perfect germinating weather for these types of seeds. And so I sprinkled some at the base of a number of my pots and also in the flower beds. The nice thing about these evergreens is they only really have to be watered every second or third day, except for when I'm paying attention to whether or not there are little seedlings at the base. Something that I identified a couple of weeks ago was that on the back side of this Irish mint euonymus from Southern Living Plants, I had a scale problem. I've also got a scale problem on some of the olive trees in the back. So I've been regularly treating them with neem oil. Interestingly, it's just on the back side here. It's not on the front side. And I can do this now because it's not too hot, and even though it's kind of sunny, this is all on the back side. I also did a soil drench with something that attacks scale a couple of weeks ago. There's new growth coming out on this, and I don't know what it is about this window box, but boy, has it attracted the grasshoppers. Fortunately, most of the things that is growing in the window box must be pretty resistant to grasshopper. It must not be too tasty to grasshoppers, because I really don't see any damage on any of the plants here. But what is going to change, happily not to damage, but what is going to change is the composition. And some of you are going to be thrilled with this, because many of you, well, not many, but I would say there's about 4 of you for whom it drives you crazy that these euonymus are not planted symmetrically in the window box. Now, interestingly, as fastidious as I am about certain things, that has never really bothered me. It's more from whether or not it looks balanced from the street. But those of you for whom it bothers, I am going to dig these out, not because it bothers me, but because they're just getting too big. And I'll probably relocate them into one of the new beds on the east side, and these will be replaced with some smaller boxwood, probably cone shape specimens that I've got growing at other places in the garden. So yes, I will be robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I'll fill them in here, and I will do it as symmetrically as possible. The other ingredients will remain, though I will probably add a little bit more pink penta here on this side, because I want it to be beautiful. And then after it's all finished, I will adorn this window box with some select gourds and pumpkins, and I think it'll be very pretty. If I have the time, I might even give my windows a wash. Well, I am using a lot of Espoma Organic Bloom right now, because I want all of my container plantings to really bloom their head off. I love this stuff, and so do the plants. So I am going to be giving them a nice dose. And sometimes I water first, and then I feed. This container right here is all about white angelonia, white yarrow, white lantana, and white periwinkles, and there's even a white succulent on the other side. These I cut back pretty hard, and I'm wanting them to fill out considerably. So here is something that I'm noting in my garden journal for next year. It worked so well on the pots below. Sometimes it's hard to find where if you're hitting the pot or not. I want these pink pentas, since pink is the color for October, for Breast Cancer Month. Breast cancer awareness, I should say. These guys a little feed. Okay, but here is something that I'm going to record in my garden journal. And that is, I'm so pleased with the pots at the bottom of the steps, because what I have discovered is anytime I do these kind of plantings, particularly these up here, some of the stuff does really well, and it does well for most of the seasons. But then at a certain point, it really gets hot, and these blooming things begin to flag a little bit. Well, here's my tip. If you put in just a small pot, it can be just a 3 or a 4-inch pot of some of this asparagus fern as one of the components, then when the other stuff begins to go south, this stuff loves the heat and it fills out, and then the pots never look like they've got any kind of bare spot. I also think it kind of protects the things that are blooming, maybe gives them a little bit of shade. So this is what I mean. And it's definitely something that I'm going to write in my garden journal to remember for next year. So if you come down here, these are the pots where I really made that observation. So you can see the asparagus fern there, and you can see it here. Here's probably a better example. But yeah, when for a little while that mandevilla vine, it was getting a little hot. Even though it could handle the location, it had kind of quit blooming, and some of the foliage yellowed and died back. But you can see right here that the cavalry arrived in the way of the asparagus fern, and it saved the day and provided a nice, delicate, ferny note to the entire composition. So I'm going to remember that for both the front and the back next year. And my, doesn't it look pretty? I can see that some of this Espoma Super Bloom is already starting to do its work. Okay, this is what I mean by very, very conservative pruning on my topiaries or any of the boxwood. See that one little outlier that's making this top ball break the form? I'm just going to pinch that off. But happily, these don't need it. But even if they did, I would only do a very, very subtle pruning on any of the boxwood, because it's getting late in the season and I don't want to, pruning forces growth, and I don't want to force a lot of new growth before it turns cold, because I want that foliage, any new emerging growth, to really get adjusted to the cold before the temperatures go south. That's not such a problem here as it probably is in locations and in gardens farther north. Nevertheless, I'm going to be attentive to that, and not much more pruning on the boxwood. They do, however, still need to be watered. Okay, let's stop for a moment to smell the roses or to appreciate the view. So this looks really spectacular right now, I think, especially when the foliage is wet and glistening like diamonds. The other thing that looks great are these carnation encore azaleas, which is why I'm going to be planting more of them on the east side in the new bed. But one thing I want you to notice that I am noticing along Lemon Lane is all of the feverfew seedlings that are germinating here in between the stepping stones, which will be very, very sweet in the spring. And I can also selectively prick a lot of them out to grow in other locations because they look so beautiful with pansies and violas. You can see a lot of it in here too. And interestingly, I sprinkled quite a bit of it along the edges, but it seems to be right here in the path, probably because it gets more sun, that more of it has germinated. But that's a very, very fun thing. And by the way, I just love Abelia. I think it's one of the most underplanted specimens, flowering specimens there is, and it blooms this time of year in such a glorious arching way. Brilliant with evergreens. And then here's the other plant that I wanted to ID for you, which is kind of unusual. And in fact, Stuart, why don't you just get a little footage of it while I get my scissors, because I'm going to give it a little snip. This is that purple ball basil. Look at how glorious it is. And I just keep snipping it so its form will remain tight. And that, by the way, is the trick to either boxwood basil or this purple ball basil, and that is keeping it snipped so it doesn't flower, so that it keeps putting out that, yeah, smells wonderful, doesn't it? That deep purple, leafy coverage. And the ball just keeps getting bigger, and the intensity of that purple just keeps getting, well, let's just say more intense. Now, I don't usually, unless I'm going to use it in the kitchen, I don't usually pick up my cuttings, because what I have found is I can just kind of do that. And some of them, like magic, some of them will actually survive and make another plant that I can use in some other location, or maybe even try to bring in for fall. If they don't go to root and create another plant, well, that's okay too, because it's organic and they'll just break down. I do want my boxwood cones to have a really strong punctuating form going into the garden tour. So this one, you can see I've given it a light prune. This one over here is a little fluffier, and I need to shear it a bit. This one's got a few outliers, so I will just very, very lightly prune these, because I want them to have a strong form, but I'm not in any way going to prune to reduce their size. One thing I do want to prune, and again, I'm not doing this really aggressively, this is just to tidy them up, are some of the suckers coming off of the Yopon hollies at the base. And I can bring some of this in if I want to use it inside, but I just want to clean up the base a little bit so it will expose any kind of weeds that are under there that I want to take care of, but also so that the silhouette will be really, really nice along Autumn's edge. So I have my handy dandy works pruners. And again, I'm not doing anything overly aggressive. I just want to clean up these suckers a little bit. Just a few.
I guess I think I know what you mean by it. So the difference is the thickness of the limb, whether it being a small limb or a sucker?
Well, the suckers typically kind of come up from the base, and they also grow very straight, whereas you'll notice these have some curve to them and look like, well, they just look like real limbs. So I'm doing it there.
Thank you.
Today's lesson, children. Okay, and look over here. And I've got a few down here.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
See these? I want these to be small trees. If I didn't periodically cut these off, it would just look like a great big shrub. And I don't do that. It's just another form of me liking to limb things up.
I was hoping you'd get that one.
Yeah. And just be a little tidier.
Why can I still smell that basil over here?
I don't know, but isn't it wonderful? One of the gifts of late summer. Also, I've got a dead branch over here. Is that dead? That one's dead too. So I'm going to clip those off and just give it a tidy up. Now, some of you may say, well, Linda, this is stuff hardly anyone would notice. And maybe not, but I notice. And so I will enjoy the garden tour more myself if I know that I've taken care of these little things. Because yes, as I learned the other day from taking my Myers-Briggs test, and if you haven't watched that video or taken the test, oh, by the way, Stuart, a lot of people want you to take it and share your results.
All right.
They also want Hubs to take it.
We'll do it.
So that's our throwdown, is for you to take it. Okay, when we come back, I'm going to show you some of the plants that are going to be relocated to the other new flower bed. See if we can imagine what this is going to look like when they are gone, and also how I'm going to identify to my helpers what needs to be moved. Okay, so these guys are going to be moved. This also helps me as I'm instructing them what's going to go where, that I don't forget that, oh, Linda, you wanted to relocate those euonymus that were in the window box. The other things are pretty obvious, but nevertheless, it makes me be attentive and not overlook anything. Notice that I'm putting the pink ones in the window box and I'm putting the orange ones on autumn's edge. It's those kind of little things that just, I don't know, make me smile. Okay, so this really overgrown Sunshine ligustrum it's just gotten too big for its space. And again, this one was planted at the same time all of the other ones were planted, these two and the ones in front. But this one I let grow. You'll recall that earlier in the season, I limbed it up a little bit, and you can see the potential is going to have to be just a wonderful, wonderful small tree once I remove some of these suckers at the base, which I will do once it gets in place, because it's got great, great form. And I got this idea from my friend John Turman, who had one growing near his back door. So I'm going to put a flag there because this one's going to be relocated, and it will expose the boxwood ball behind it, and it will help that backside of that huge boxwood ball get some light. And then I think it kind of looks like one big golden blob, but both of these I think I am going to relocate. I think I've mentioned this before, but these are going to be relocated. And look at how much area, how much real estate area this is going to uncover for me, so that things like this red Husker penstemon down in here, some of the other penstemon seedlings that I have in here, well, they are just going to really have a lot more room to grow. I also have some perennials coming in from White Flower Farm. They will probably live in this area, and well, I can just get more bang for my buck from both my existing plants and these plants that I will relocate. Here's an area that's been bothering me. You really don't see it a lot, or I would have addressed this problem sooner. But that's this area right in here. You can see it looks kind of messy. And look here, this is one of the reasons I haven't pulled out any of this stuff. Look. I mean, the monarchs have just been in heaven. So I've got some zinnias growing over here, some cosmos, and while the cosmos looks great down from the bottom edge, up here it looks kind of ratty, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I want to pull it out. The zinnias here, as they always do towards the end of the season, have developed some powdery mildew, but you really can't see that too much. I may give it an antifungal spray with some copper fungicide, but you really can't see it too much, and so I think I'm going to let it stay in place, because you can see the tops of these flowers hovering down on autumn's edge and when you're standing up here, and this really isn't too visible. So I'm going to clean it up, cut some things back, remove some dead foliage, do some deadheading, but then I'm just going to resist my temptation for everything to be perfect and just leave this alone, because obviously the monarchs, they just don't care. This is kind of a cool thing, you guys. This is a stem of cosmos that just fell over. The original plant I pulled out, but it puts out so many roots along the stem itself that when the long stem fell on the ground, it just rooted itself into the dirt and made a whole nother plant. Normally, I wouldn't do this when the foliage was wet, but I started and I didn't realize it was just a little damp. But it's in the morning, it's sunny out, it's going to really dry up very, very quickly. So that's not too bad. Now I'm not going to do, as I said earlier, I'm not going to do any feeding on my boxwood, but what I will do, and Stuart right here, let's put up a picture of Restore and Protect Top Bux's boxwood treatment, because I want to protect them going into the winter time. So later this week, I will be using it and spraying all of my boxwood with Top Buxus. And I've got a special code for you all that gets you a discount. This stuff is wonderful. I've used it for years. It's used extensively in Europe to help fight boxwood blight. I believe Martha uses it on her boxwood. I want to make sure I don't cut that beautiful arching cane of the Miss Lemonabilia. And that is what I mean by just a little trim. Not a big haircut, just a little bit of wispy pruning. Here's a little bit more seedling identification. I never see these types of seedlings this time of year, except for when it's been inordinately cool and rainy. And look here, I am spying some Minoan lace seedlings. They've got this characteristic kind of strappy, not the first true leaves, but first very, see, here's another one right here. Strappy leaves, and then there's that delicate, ferny, very characteristic foliage. So I've got some, here's another one, some Minoan lace that's already starting to come up and germinate. And if the winter is not real harsh, it will probably grow through and be ready to bloom fairly early next spring. One thing that I am being very, very vigilant about, and that is continuing to deadhead everything. Because if I want things to be in full bloom, then I not only want to feed them to produce more blooms, but I also want to make sure that I deadhead them so they don't try to go to seed and they just keep those blooms coming. These dahlias, which for me, traditionally dahlias don't do very well in Oklahoma, but these are kind of doing pretty well, and a number of people have asked me about them. And this is what I mean when I said earlier that when you look at it and you skim the top, you can see the beautiful zinnias, but you don't really see their ugliness below because the other plants kind of hide their ugly legs. So that's why I think I'm going to keep them in place and make sure this is all really, really watered. Now these in here I'm deadheading, not because I really think they'll bloom anymore, but because these are really valuable seeds. And I'm saving some coneflower seeds because I want to seed the alley, my kind of hell strip in the alley with these coneflowers. This area just looks beautiful, backlit by the morning sun, especially because the sun's not really harsh right now. But I love the combination of those red dahlias and that orange rocket barberry and the sunshine ligustrum. I think it all works well together. And even though these aren't my preferred colors for up front, for Autumn's Edge, I think they're perfect right now. Well, I am not about to cut, other than when I want to bring some of them inside, the pinky dried blooms on the moondance hydrangeas. But for some reason, which has me mystified, these on the end, which actually get less sun than the other ones do, have, I don't know, they've browned. So these I am going to deadhead just because I don't want them to look unsightly. But all the other ones I'm going to leave intact. And I'm also not going to cut them far back, but I am going to just do a simple deadhead on these. The other thing that this might do is encourage something that let me cut that one back a little bit more. What I'm trying to encourage is these carnation azaleas. You can see here how they're starting to grow up and through. these moon dance hydrangeas, doing exactly what I hoped they would do, and I'll be darned if they're not doing it. And that's this beautiful color echo between the pale pink of the drying blooms and the color of the Encore Azalea. So let me show you what I mean. These are the kind of things that just really make me happy. So see how that pale pink on the hydrangea petals mimics that beautiful pink on the Encore Azaleas. And so these that aren't blooming but are very, very tall and vertical, when they bloom next fall, it's going to be even more spectacular than it is. I love being able to come into the backyard, and the only thing I have to do is just blow off the debris from the night before. And that's because yesterday I spent the most blissful morning and afternoon doing nothing but working here in the backyard. I had my windows open and I was listening to some great football. I don't know if any of you caught the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. What a game yesterday. It was so fun to be working here in the backyard, getting things done while I was also enjoying some football. We have yet to have our first piñon fire, but I think that's going to be, well, that is going to be any time now. And the only other thing I really need to do is just keep feeding all of the blooming plants back here with some of that espoma bloom, and I will do that. Look here, I need to probably harvest some peppers. I have lots of peppers, lots of jalapenos, some poblanos. I did do a last prune on the Eugenia topiary back here, and well, I'll do just a little bit more fluffing and a little bit more grooming. But other than that, I'm calling the backyard good, save for the pumpkins, which will come next week. So the other thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing all of you, and hopefully you will be able to come to my garden tour on October 4th to help raise money for the Friends of the OU Breast Institute. It's a wonderful, wonderful cause. I think we're going to have a really big crowd, and I think a lot of you are going to be coming from, well, let's just say outside the state of Oklahoma. So what will be fun is not only for me to meet you, but for you all to meet each other, because this is a community here that we're really trying to encourage, and I think that will be fun for all of you. If you can come, and at the same time, the Heritage Hills home tour in my neighborhood is going to be going on. So that's a reminder about that. Also, a reminder that if you haven't already done so, here's my ask. Please pre-order my book, Gardening Inspired Living Through the Seasons. I'm sure Stuart will put up a link here. I'll be doing lots of book signings in and around the Oklahoma City area, but make sure you get a copy and order it now. And lastly, my last big ask is, please, if you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, follow along as we all share a garden inspired living together, and most importantly, share with others if you think they too might enjoy this kind of content. So have a wonderful week ahead, and I will see you on Wednesday.